Every time Russia feels as though it's starting to gain a foothold in the war, Ukraine comes up with something new. Innovation lies at the heart of Ukraine's asymmetric warfare campaign, and it's Russia's soldiers, equipment, and logistical infrastructure that continue to pay the price. In November, Ukraine hit Russia with a doozy. Ukraine's deadly new weapon ignites chaos behind Russian lines, and it does it by giving Ukraine a drone that allows it to cover the mid-range regions of the war that Ukraine hadn't been able to hit before. That new drone is the FP2, and as United 24 media reports, it was brought to Ukraine by Firepoint. They're the same technical minds who have developed the Flamingo missile that Ukraine is now using to hit Russia hard at range. While the Flamingo is designed to pack a far heavier explosive punch than the long-range drones Ukraine has used against Russia during the war, the FP2 is designed to offer a similar level of heavy firepower while dealing with targets Ukraine previously wasn't able to strike that lie behind the combat lines. United 24 media provides the new drone's basic specifications. It says that a single FP2 can carry a payload weighing up to 105 kilograms, which is roughly equivalent to 231 pounds. That alone makes the drone a terrifying prospect for Russia's forces. The sheer size of the FP2's payload is anywhere between 10 and 20 times that of a regular first-person view or FPV drone, which hints at the FP2 is a drone designed to hit heavier targets than tanks and armored vehicles. Ukraine's Security Service, or SBU, says as much, as it notes that it's able to use the FP2 to hit locations that Russia uses for logistics, supply coordination, and troop deployment. But we'll get back to how Ukraine is using this new drone in a moment. The FP2's other big advantage over the majority of the short-range drones Ukraine currently deploys is that it has a range of about 200 kilometers, or approximately 124 miles. That gives Ukraine options. No longer limited by the short range of its FPV drones, Ukraine can use FP2s to do serious damage along the combat lines, as well as to penetrate them deeply enough for positions Russia thought were safe to come under threat. Interestingly, this 200-kilometer range is actually a 1,200-kilometer downgrade from the FP1, which Firepoint developed to provide Ukraine with another option for striking Russia itself. The range trade-off allows the FP2 to pack a much heavier warhead than the FP1. Plus, again, it's all about options. Now, Ukraine has the FP1 and other long-range drones and missiles it can use to hit Russia, the FP2 for mid-range strikes, and FPV drones it can use to patrol the combat lines. That's terrifying to Russia. Ukraine now has a layered drone offense that can pick off almost any target. RBC Ukraine offers a few more details about Ukraine's new drone. It says that Firepoint has made it available in two variants. The first is an FP2 that features an autonomous guidance system which is ideal for dealing with stationary targets. All Ukraine has to do is set the coordinates and the drone guides itself to the strike zone. As for the second variant, this allows manual control of the FP2 via a radio link, making it similar to an FPV drone. A Ukrainian drone operator can use this radio link to guide their FP2 onto a moving target or to ensure a direct hit is scored against a stationary target that might be too difficult for the first variant to reach. We've already said it a couple of times, options. RBC Ukraine also adds that the FP2 has a very similar architecture to the FP1 we mentioned, which is another huge plus for Ukraine. Firepoint has already moved the FP1 into mass production. Standardization of that production already exists, so it doesn't take much for the manufacturer to apply the same standards to its FP2 development. The upshot here is that Firepoint can build its brand new FP2 drones at an accelerated rate, which is why we're already starting to see them being used on the battlefield. Writing for his Medium column, Ryder Blackthorn adds that Firepoint has already designed mobile setups configured to look like military trucks. These allow for quick deployment anywhere across or behind the front lines inside Ukraine, so the FP2 is already mobile thanks to its strong range. These trucks enhance that mobility by allowing Ukraine's operators to drive as close as they dare to the Russian target before unleashing their FP2s. Frankly, Ukraine has just received a killer drone against which Russia has almost no defense. Or as Blackthorn puts it, the FP2 is a battlefield brawler, not a long-range assassin like the FP1, but exactly what you want when the enemy's dug in and you need to hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. Blackthorn also notes that the FP2 is exactly the right drone arriving at the right time for Ukraine. Coming back to the range, he says that losing 1,200 kilometers from the FP1 is barely even a sacrifice because Ukraine already has plenty of drones that are capable of traveling that far or deeper into Russian territory. What Ukraine needed was a drone that could hit targets a couple of hundred kilometers deep into occupied Ukraine. FP2 fills that need. Russia will be wary of the amount of damage such a powerful drone could cause. However, it may want to soothe itself with the belief that such a strong drone must surely cost Firepoint a bundle to build. That belief is mistaken. Perhaps the most important attribute of the FP2, beyond even its range and firepower, is its price. The drone costs just $55,000 to build. This is a drone that packs as much firepower as many missiles, and yet it costs a fraction of the amount to build. That's huge for Ukraine, because the war against Russia has been very costly. For as well as Ukraine has defended itself, a major toll has been taken on the country's economy. Responsible Statecraft highlighted this monetary issue in a March article. It claimed that Ukraine could wind up broke even if the war ended back in March, suggesting that the country is in financial peril. To balance the books in 2026, it added, Ukraine would have to cut its military budget by 80% to make a $41 billion saving. There may be other options. For instance, The Guardian reports that the European Union is looking into using Russia's frozen assets to provide a substantial loan to Ukraine that could be as much as $157.5 billion over the next few years. However, that proposal is still in the works, and there are no guarantees that such a loan is forthcoming. For Ukraine, building a new drone that can hit as hard as the FP2 for as little as that drone costs is essential for bringing down its defense budget at a time when the entire country may face financial problems. There's another side to this low-cost coin, however. While Ukraine obviously benefits from building such cheap yet effective weapons, Russia also suffers mightily. That's according to the Lowy Institute's David Kirichenko, who wrote an article in June highlighting how Ukraine's cheap drones have already exacted a heavy financial price from Russia. He highlighted the devastating Operation Spiderweb, which saw Ukraine sneak low-cost FPV drones into Russia on the back of trucks. Those drones were unleashed on several Russian airfields, causing an estimated $7 billion in damage, while disabling up to a third of Russia's strategic bomber fleet. While Ukraine hasn't spoken about the cost of this operation, the FPV drones it used can cost as little as $400 per unit. As Kirichenko put it, drones each worth a couple of $100 remotely launched from a cargo container inflicted billions in damages against Russia. A foreign adversary with far more resources could seek to replicate Kyiv's innovations in the future, with chatter already spreading about the potential danger from Chinese cargo ships. The adversaries with large pockets are future problems for Russia, but right now it's dealing with a version of Ukraine that can cost Russia millions or even billions of dollars with the use of drones that only cost thousands of dollars to build. Don't underestimate how important this cost-effectiveness is for Ukraine. After all, Russia isn't immune to economic issues of its own. Putin has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on his supposed special military operation, and he has taken Russia's economy to the brink of destruction to do so. Back in September, the Russian Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, noted that Russia is going to struggle to maintain its current level of war spending. The numbers show the Russian economy is cooling off, Reshetnikov said during an economic conference held in St. Petersburg in June. Judging by business sentiment at the moment, Russia is basically already on the brink of falling into a recession. That seems to be a warning that Putin isn't heeding. He claims that Russia tumbling to around the 1% gross domestic product growth mark in 2025 from the over 4% growth seen in 2024 is all part of the plan, somehow. It isn't. Putin is lying through his teeth to justify his insane Ukraine war spending. Ukraine can take advantage of this with weapons like the FP2 by using its drones to continue taking out valuable Russian military assets at a fraction of the cost of those assets, as Russia continues to run full steam ahead into an economic meltdown of its own. It may soon no longer be able to afford to replace those assets. Oh, and one last thing about the FP2, it's just as capable of hitting Russian targets at night as it is of taking them out during the light of day. And that brings us nicely to how Ukraine has already started using its new drone to ignite chaos behind the Russian front lines. After all, the impressive specifications wouldn't mean much if Ukraine wasn't able to prove that the FP2 is combat ready. But it has, several times, as United 24 Media reports. On November 2nd, that outlet reported that the SBU had carried out a series of precision strikes using FP2 drones. All of these strikes took place in occupied areas of Ukraine, suggesting that Ukraine had sent its new drones behind the combat lines. The targets, United 24 Media says, were several military warehouses and bases that Russia is using to both coordinate and supply the soldiers fighting against Ukraine stationed miles away. The SBU itself provided more details in a Telegram post published on November 2nd. Alpha Special Forces of the Security Service of Ukraine carried out a series of precision strikes on enemy positions in temporarily occupied territories, the SBU declared. The locations of accumulation of equipment and personnel used for logistics and distribution of enemy forces were hit. It should come as no surprise that the Alpha Special Forces were chosen for one of the first uses of the FP2 on the battlefield. Considered one of the top divisions of Ukraine's special forces, The Alpha Group is involved in everything from asymmetric warfare and the capture of high-value targets to black operations and long-range strikes against Ukraine's enemies. It's something of a jack-of-all special forces trades, and has proven its effectiveness from the moment that Putin invaded Ukraine. It was the Alpha Special Forces that destroyed a convoy filled with Chechen paramilitary forces heading toward Kyiv during the first few days of the invasion. The group has also been heavily involved in the battle for Kharkiv, and it's captured several spies, infiltrators, and Russian sympathizers during the course of the war. This is a group that's capable of getting almost any job done, making it the perfect choice for showcasing what Ukraine's new FP2 drones can do. Russia can't even deny that these strikes happened. The SBU posted footage to show what Ukraine did with its new drones. The video showcases multiple targets being hit, presumably by the drones. Some of the footage appears to have been shot by the FP2s themselves as they approach their targets, suggesting that the drones have similar capabilities to FPV drones in that regard. Perhaps these were the versions of the drone that Ukraine controlled manually. Regardless, the footage showcases several large explosions that highlight the power being delivered by the FP2. And almost all of the targets are buildings that Ukraine may have struggled to damage with its short-range and less powerful FPV drones. And Ukraine wasn't done there. On November 3rd, Euromaidan Press reported that the SBU had sparked yet more chaos behind Russia's front lines with another series of strikes. We have more information about these attacks than we do about the November 2nd strikes, especially when it comes to locations. On November 3rd, Ukraine hit a pair of logistical facilities in Luhansk, both of which are regularly used by Russia's troops, Euromaidan Press says. Ukraine's special forces took to Telegram to provide more information about this pair of strikes, stating, "Near the city of Dovzhansk, a place for unloading fuel and lubricants was hit by fire. Near the village of Roskishna, one of the SOF units destroyed a warehouse for the logistical support of the occupation forces." The same post noted that disruption was Ukraine's plan with the November 3rd strike. In addition to making it more difficult for Russia to get much-needed supplies to its frontline troops, the FP2s also took out fuel intended for the center grouping of Russian soldiers. Ukraine is being clever here. Rather than allowing Russia to deploy its troops at as close to full strength as possible, Ukraine is focusing on the supply lines that feed those soldiers. Granted, this means that Ukraine still has to destroy Russia's assaults as and when they're launched, but the soldiers Ukraine is fighting have less equipment, fuel, and other supplies, making them much easier targets for Ukraine's FPV drones. This is the multi-layered drone offensive we mentioned earlier. Ukraine uses FP2 drones to weaken Russia from the rear, before using FPV drones to take out the Russian soldiers who no longer benefit from the logistical network built up behind them. Euromaidan Press adds that the Dovzhansk strike occurred about 150 kilometers, or about 93 miles, behind the front lines. So Ukraine is already taking advantage of the range of its FP2s to do plenty of damage. As for the Roskishna strike, it took place in a Luhansk suburb that is around 90 kilometers, or about 56 miles, behind the combat lines. As with the November 2nd strikes, there is also footage. What we see is much the same on November 3rd. Footage shot from the drones that Ukraine used shows them approaching their targets before scoring direct hits. We don't get to see explosions this time, suggesting that Ukraine didn't have the reconnaissance drones recording what it was doing in Luhansk. Still, it doesn't matter. We see what's happening from the FP2's perspectives, which is all the proof needed to demonstrate that Ukraine scored direct hits with its new drones. Russia should be worried. The FP2 has been let loose and it's already causing far more damage than its $55,000 price tag suggests it should be able to cause. However, Russia shouldn't just be worried about this specific drone. What the FP2 shows us, perhaps more than anything else, is that Ukraine is constantly adapting its drone strategy to account for Russia's tactics. Dealing with the Russian mid-range was a problem for Ukraine, with the FP2 providing the solution. But this innovative drone is far from the only thing that Ukraine is bringing to the table as the war with Russia marches into 2026. Take gamification, for instance. On November 3rd, The Guardian published a report claiming that Ukraine has created a video game-like reward system for its drone operators. The system, which was launched at some point in 2024, rewards soldiers with points that they can use to buy more drones and weapons from an online store named Brave One. There are over 100 drones and autonomous vehicles available via the store, suggesting that Ukraine's drone operators are using the game their country has created to upgrade their equipment. The approach is working, as The Guardian says. Drone teams competing for points under the Army of Drones bonus system killed or wounded 18,000 Russian soldiers in September, with 400 drone units now taking part in the competition, up from 95 in August. The very idea conjures up images of Ukraine's drone operators conducting the war as though they're playing a game of Call of Duty. It may seem grim to some, but the gamification of drone warfare offers an incentive to these operators to destroy more Russian troops and equipment. Perhaps the game provides a sort of levity for an otherwise brutal task. Whatever the case may be, Russia should be very concerned about the sheer number of soldiers it lost in a single month to players of Ukraine's new drone game. Other Ukrainian innovations include the use of drones to create a multi-layered defense, much like the multi-layered offense to which the FP2 now contributes. UKR Inform spoke about this new defensive approach in an article where it quoted Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi. Writing on Facebook, Syrskyi said, "We are creating a layered system to counter enemy Shahids and Gerants. Our joint task is to form more crews, train more interceptor operators, and provide them with more effective strike systems and radars. It's drones upon drones." And whether Russia is attacking or defending, it seems that it no longer has any escape from Ukraine's aerial menaces. If these multi-layered defenses work in tandem with the FP2 and Ukraine's FPV drones, then Russia is in serious trouble. Ukraine can assault its troops behind the combat lines with FP2s, use FPV drones to shred soldiers on the front lines, and snuff out attempted advances with layers of drone defenses it's built up. Soon, it may not just be the FP2s that are causing problems for Russia. A Lithuanian company has developed an insane experimental drone that packs a punch and is soon going to be capable of conducting coordinated swarm raids against Russian targets, and that drone isn't staying in Lithuania. It's heading to Ukraine to add yet another piece to Ukraine's growing drone puzzle. Find out more about that drone and its capabilities in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more coverage of the latest weapons Ukraine is developing to counter the Russian threat. And thank you for watching.